Hi, everyone. Today we're talking about exceptions. In the past, we've talked about errors, and that's the only word that we've ever used for that. But this quote is taken directly from the Python docs, and it says that there are at least two distinguishable kinds of errors: syntax errors and exceptions. These syntax errors are the ones that prevent your code from running immediately. It is things like forgetting to close the parentheses or forgetting to close a quotation mark. It's writing a for loop without putting a colon at the end. Or maybe you have a problem with your indentation. Those are all examples of syntax errors. And because the literal characters in your code are not being able to be interpreted by Python, your program doesn't run. Today, we're going to focus on a different type of error, which is what's called exceptions. Exceptions are when your code is syntactically correct, which means that all of the spacing and all of the parentheses and quotation marks and colons are all in the correct place. Let's take a look at an example right now. Here is a piece of code that is syntactically correct. And again, all that that means is we followed all of the rules laid out by Python. We have the def keyword to define the function. We've ended this line with a colon. The next line is indented. Everything is perfectly correct. And if I run this code, you can see I get a result of 10 divided by 2 is 5. So we don't have a problem so far. But let's look at the same exact code, but now we're trying to divide by 0. If I run this, I get a 0 division error. So this would be an exception. The code itself is correct, but mathematically, we're not able to divide by 0, so we get what's called a 0 division error. Now, there are lots of different types of errors, and we'll look at a couple more later on. And also in the byte itself, we've linked to all of the possible types of errors. Don't worry about trying to memorize them all, just know that they exist. Here's an example of how we would handle that 0 division error in a little bit nicer way. You start with the word try. This is a Python keyword, and you end it with a colon. Because this line ends in a colon, the next line is going to be indented, and we attempt to do our division. And then we use the next Python keyword, which is called except. So here we say, try to do that division, except if you get a 0 division error. If that's the case, just return the string cannot divide by 0. Then we return the result only if this exception block isn't run. And so now if I do that, I don't get that messy traceback error. I get a nice message that says cannot divide by 0. It is possible to do what's called raising your own exception. In the background of this example here, let me go back 2 screens for us. Python automatically raised a 0 division error. That is the term that we used for this. Sometimes in your code, you want to be able to raise your own custom error or exception. In this, we have a simple function that takes in an email. And if there is not an @ sign in the email, then we need to raise a value error. So if we take a look here and we call this function validate email, you'll see right here we created our own custom version of a value error, and it says invalid email address. This doesn't exist in Python on its own, this message right here. We created it ourselves. And now if I come back up here and I say, no, let me actually put this like so, you'll see that it just returned the email that I put in. Now, technically speaking, this is not a valid email yet. We would need to do a couple more things, like make sure that it goes to an actual .com or a .es or a .org or something like that. But this is just a small example to show you how to raise your own errors. Hopefully this was helpful, and good luck on today's bite.